Good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone joining us today. On behalf of USAID and Resilience Links, I welcome you to our Theme Month webinar on strengthening resilience capacities, learning journey insights from Somalia, Niger, and Burkina Faso. I am Jamie Charles with Resilience Links. Before we begin, let me orient you to the Zoom platform. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see most of your controls. First, please use the chat to introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining us from. To ask questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A button. We are recording this webinar and will email you the post-event resources shortly following the event. You can also find the resources on resiliencelinks.org. Next slide, please. Let's look briefly at today's agenda. After some opening remarks, we will hear from the Sahel Collaboration and Communication Activity and the Somalia Resilience Population Measurement Activity. Following the presentations, our speakers will address questions from the audience before we close with brief remarks from our host. Next slide, please. Our host today is Wendy Bevins, Senior Resilience Knowledge Management and Learning Advisor at Mercy Corps. Unfortunately, Jill Scantlin is unable to join us today. Thank you for your attendance, and I will now pass over to Michael Coons, Senior Knowledge Management Advisor for USAID's Center for Resilience.
Thank you, Jamie, and thanks to the entire Resilience Links team for organizing this webinar to share lessons learned and good practices for resilience capacity strengthening from two flagship programs in the Sahel and Somalia. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's great to see such an impressive turnout today. I'd like to start out by saying that on behalf of the Center for Resilience, we really appreciate the Resilience Links Knowledge Management Platform. The monthly webinars and newsletters on resilience themes are a great way to share knowledge and learn about how the growing community of practitioners are designing and implementing programs to strengthen resilience among households, communities, and systems. At USAID, we consider resilience the ability to adapt and manage through adversity and change without compromising future well-being. USAID's resilience policy underscores the importance of supporting transformative capacities. The idea here is that shocks and stresses are perennial features, not anomalies, in the complex risk environments where we work. Therefore, it's important for policymakers and practitioners at all levels to understand the risk context. This includes the key sources of resilience that can be invested in to strengthen the capacity of local stakeholders to mitigate, adapt to, and recover from shocks and stresses. Today, we're excited to learn how two USAID flagship resilience programs, SCC and RPM, are implementing cohort-based training to promote and support innovative multi-sector programming that enhances humanitarian and development impact. To learn more about these resilience programs, we invite you to visit resiliencelinks.org and click on the Activities tab. There you will see that SCC and RPM are the first activities featured on Resilience Links, and more pages with other activities are coming soon. If you are part of an activity and would like to be featured, send an email to contact@resiliencelinks.org. and a member of the Resilience Links team will guide you through the next steps. We're looking forward to today's discussion, and we appreciate the opportunity to learn about the growing body of evidence demonstrating that strengthened local capacity is essential to achieving and maintaining well-being outcomes in the face of conflict, climate, COVID-like pandemics, and other significant shocks. Thank you to all of our speakers and everybody who helped make this webinar possible. And thanks again to you all for joining. I'll now hand it over to Wendy Bevins. Thanks, Wendy. Over to you.
Wendy, you're muted. Thank you. Apologies for that. Thanks for that great introduction, Michael. And Jamie, thank you for giving us this opportunity to present these two teams and all the work that they've done around creating space for resilience capacity strengthening in 2 USAID programs. In both programs, resilience capacity strengthening takes many forms. These include conducting contextually relevant research, facilitating knowledge management among portfolio partners, and technical support. The technical support aspect is delivered in 2 ways, either specific requests for support from programs or cohort-based trainings. Today, we're going to focus on the experience of both projects in their cohort-based trainings. We'll begin with the Sahel Collaboration and Communication Activity, which we also call SCC. SCC's cohort-based training is called the RCLA Fellowship. I've had the privilege to work alongside the SCC team on its fellowship. And specifically, I worked closely with SCC to develop its assessment tool as a part of my role in the USAID-supported REAL Award. REAL stands for Resilience, Evaluation, Analysis, and Learning. The REAL Award informs policy and improves resilience programming through strategic analysis, capacity strengthening, and knowledge sharing. I believe I have a REAL colleague who's going to drop a few links in the chat about this learning award in case you're interested in learning more. Next slide, please. Our first speaker today is Rabia Musa, who will present on the SCC Fellowship in just a moment. She's joining us from Niamey, Niger. She is the Research and Learning Manager for SCC. Rabia has worked for many years as an expert in digital strategy and development for several United Nations agencies and as a consultant in citizen engagement, gender, and digital strategies for the World Bank's Community Action for Climate Resilience project. She has a background in software engineering and a certificate in business and entrepreneurship from Dartmouth College. She's also co-founder of the association Develop-les, which means empower them. As a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow, a 2019 Global Pathfinder Fellow, and a 2019 Blog for Dev Niger winner, Rabia is deeply involved in the digital, entrepreneurial, and humanitarian ecosystems in the Sahel. Rabia is also co-lead of the Niamey Google Developer Group and the Francophone West Africa Regional Mentor for Google Women Tech Makers. Gildas Ruamba will represent SCC during the Q&A session later on. He's a capacity building and development cooperation specialist, and his current role in SCC is as the fellowship's manager and master facilitator. He joins us today from Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Gildas possesses a master's degree in economic intelligence and international development, a certificate in technical and professional skills development, a diploma in regional and rural development management, and an MBA in international affairs. He has 15 years of national and international experience throughout West Africa in implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of processes that support the development and facilitation of change and learning. Gildas will respond to questions during the Q&A session in French, and I will do my best to translate for him. Before I invite Rabia to share about the SCC Fellowship, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the recent coup in Niger. It's added tension and uncertainty to daily life in Niger and nearby countries. I appreciate that that puts more pressure on SCC's team, as well as all our partners and colleagues in Niger, and that it has created ripple effects for teams in nearby countries. I imagine several of those joining us for this webinar today are feeling those effects. And I'd like to offer my gratitude to those teams who remain committed to the communities they serve, despite the increasingly difficult circumstances, and to offer my best wishes for a solution that brings the peace and justice that the people of Niger deserve. With that, I'd like to invite Rabia to present the SCC Fellowship.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Despite the challenges, I continue to dream of a resilient, inclusive, stable, and prosperous Sahel. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this great opportunity to present our capacity strengthening model, the RCLA Fellowship. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. So what you said, the RCLA Fellowship is our capacity strengthening model, and you are very convinced in SCC that with well-strategized collaboration, continuous learning, and the adaptation of our interventions, and interventions of individuals and organizations, we can better position themselves to succeed and thrive in uncertain environment, and then further strengthen resilience. So basically, that's the LCRA. And then it's just a dynamic and effective strategy for navigating to the complexities of various situations. So our LCLA fellowship aims to familiarize fellows with LCLA concept and tools, and also to help them integrate this approach, in their planning to ensure better impact, performance, and sustainability of interventions. Next slide, please. So the LCLA fellowship takes place in the two countries covered by SCC, Niger and Burkina Faso, and we target our champions. That's why we called our fellows from the USAID portfolio in Sahel, specifically RISE 2, GPCS, and Bridge, and then also national resilience institutions. We already had 4 cohorts, 2 in Niger and 2 in Burkina Faso, and we are working to have very soon 2 others cohort, 1 per country. So what are you talking about during our LCLA fellowship? So is 7 modules focuses on LCLA concept, and also how you can improve, capacity on drafting system dynamics, but also resilient system design and organizational dynamics and LCLA planning. So how you can do that? Our LCLA fellowship is a 3-month learning-centered experience, and each cohort takes part in 3 extensive face-to-face training sessions and 9 virtual sessions in between. So the curriculum is mainly for in-person with highly collaborative, and you use simulations and case studies to contextualize the information given for the fellows. Next slide, please. So we ask to the fellows to complete surveys before, at the end, and after 6 months after the fellowship. And according to these surveys, you have notified the following advances. So first one is the improving ability to define resilience and also CLA awareness. And fellows say that they are better understanding the relationship between resilience and CLA, sorry. And then it's more easier for them to see the added value for the LCLA approach compared to the traditional approach in their interventions. And then they are more equipped, to implement LCLA in their activities. And then one major advance is that some of them starting apply the LCLA approach, and they are better identified and added areas of collaboration in joint action plans. Next slide, please. The surveys also enable us to adapt the fellowship structure and not some recommendation for USAID. So one of the adaptation that we got from our curricula is a structural adaptation to meet participants' needs, because Howard said we are very focusing on the case studies that our fellows are working daily. So it's very important to make sure that the fellowship meets their needs. So we got also some change in the targeting of champions, because at the beginning we have just focused on the resilience specialist, and then we realized that you need a various background to have a fruitful exchange and a better experience in this fellowship. So so you refine also some sessions activities. And then you got a champions network, because the LCLA fellows from Niger and Burkina Faso have quarterly meetings online, and they can also work peer-to-peer to better learn. So we also update our LCLA toolkits, and in ICC, we decided also to provide more technical assistance and team flexibility, you know, to help the fellows better integrate LCLA approach in their planifications. So about the recommendation for USAID, the main recommendation we got from fellows is that they think that it's going to be interesting to have some USAID staff participate in the fellowship, and also having, for example, an indicator linked to the integration of LCLA fellowship in USAID activities, and then having more collaboration from USAID and IPs with local governments and other partners who will remain in the community. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for your attention. If you want to know more about SCC, our activities, and our documentation, please visit our Facebook page, our website, our Resilience Links page. Once again, thank you so much, and giving back the floor to Wendy.
Thank you, Rabia. Okay, I'd now like to introduce Jafar Sadiq Hassan, who is the Chief of Party of the Resilience Population Level Measurement Activity at Mercy Corps. He's based in Mogadishu, Somalia. Jafar has over 10 years experience in resilience programming with diverse programs and models in the Horn of Africa region. As Chief of Party for the Resilience Population Measurement Activity, he leads the development of a user-centered resilience measurement system in USAID's focal zone. In previous roles at Mercy Corps, Jafar worked as the Resilience Learning Activity Team Lead, where he facilitated and guided partnerships among key USAID stakeholders, many of whom I see have joined today, guided those partnerships toward common objectives and approaches for building resilience in a complex crisis. Likewise, he has worked with key resilience consortiums in Somalia, where he extensively contributed to resilience approaches and practices in Somalia. Next slide, please. I'd just like to say a few words about RPM. Next slide, please. And what makes resilience population level measurement activity, which we also call RPM, what makes it an important and innovative program for USAID Somalia. Firstly, RPM has established an innovative resilience measurement system that's advancing innovative approaches to measuring resilience globally and supporting USAID Somalia to coordinate and demonstrate the collective impact of their investments. Secondly, RPM has developed a resilience learning journey curriculum that aims to strengthen stakeholders' capacity to estimate how their individual activities and investments contribute to collective resilience outcomes. It does this through providing, number one, a common understanding of which resilience capacities are most important, and number two, a unified approach to measuring contributions to collective outcomes. This work is all intended to help address some of the issues that partners have with quantifying and communicating how their specific projects and programs build targeted resilience capacities. Finally, RPM's work is all in the service of a larger goal of USAID Somalia to accelerate progress towards collective resilience and self-reliance. I'm now going to pass things off to my colleague Jafar to walk you through some of the great work that he and the RPM team are doing.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Rabia, and the rest of the team. Thank you for joining us today. So I'll take you through what RPM is currently doing. My colleague has started giving you the overall objectives, and so our objective generally is we want to understand how stakeholders initiatives that contribute to more significant resilience capacities in the focal zone. So that is under objective one, we intend to build capacity of partners through the resilience learning journeys, and also help them articulate how their resilience stories are able to be showcased through the capacities they are building. In our second objective also, we are intending to see assessing population level change. That's why to see what is shifting at the higher level and come up with what are the major capacities that matter in Somalia, and also connect them back to the first objective where partners are able to see how they are contributing to those ones. Next slide. I'll start with the second objective, whereby I try to give you a picture of our indicative research lines. So RPM generally has comprehensive research protocols for measurement and strategies to undertake surveys. As illustrated in your screen, it starts with the formative researches, where we started with literature reviews and now formative researches, followed up by the panel survey and then recurrent monitoring surveys of 5 rounds that we plan to undertake. So far, we have concluded this first round of the panel, and the second round is projected to be done in March 2026. In between, we plan to undertake 5 rounds of RMSs with distinct qualitative and quantitative phases between 2023 to 2026. Likewise, we intend to do deep dives to understand more the emerging capacities and other contextual issues. The program aims to also do multiple program learning products, including accessible learning and digestible analysis, and other products that are related to it. Next slide, yeah. So I'll start just giving you a brief from our previous literature review and startup in trying to understand the baseline of how the situation is in Somalia. After the program launch, we started with literature review of trying to understand what capacities that matter in Somalia and what strengths of evidence does exist in Somalia for each of the capacities. As you can see on your screen, we have top 6 that we found out the most emerging resilience capacities that matter most to all shocks from literature review and also key informant interviews from industry experts. The 6 capacities had varied levels of evidence, with social connectedness being the most evidence, while psychosocial factors have the least evidence available. So next, as you were able to see in our previous slides, that we start with the formative researches. So during the drought, RPM tried to assess what are the major 2 capacities, that is the social connectedness and psychosocial support, have been coping, how communities have been coping with the drought using those 2 capacities, and also identifying any outlier capacities that are able to help communities or households that are positively geared. And access to credit and loans have been identified as one of the helping outlier capacity on top of our find out. So individuals who are well known or well established within the community are able to access and receive credit versus those who are not. And access to credit made it critical decision on how households are during the drought. During the assessment, also we found out social connectedness critically played a key role, and the more connected a household was, the easier it was for them to access support from the community. And the more social connected, particularly connections in the urban areas and the diaspora, leverage their social connections to share and secure support for most vulnerable and less connected. Informal support networks also were very important, that really modified how positive deviant households during the drought were able to cope. So it ensured that the distribution of resources within the communities and most vulnerable are able to access them. So social networks became increasingly important. However, the caveat to that is that as the drought prolonged, these social networks have been critically exhausted and depleted during the recent drought. Likewise, in the psychosocial factors, we found out prolonged sadness, optimism, and commitment to hard work were some of the things communities were relying on. Also, the role of traditional elders and religious leaders play a critical role in supporting psychosocial roles, particularly for men, was critically highlighted, and the connections to business and other linkages also are very important. Households that diversified their income also were able to survive much better than the rest. So these were the major highlights of the capacities. Next. So that was just trying to connect you with what we have done from our research end, and we are now coming to what's our resilience learning journey, how we are able to connect those capacities and how these two objectives reinforce each other. So resilience learning journey is a curriculum or is a process whereby we work with USAID partners in going through a journey. And this journey is based on to establish result chains and also shaping the program logic and learning needs. Also, we utilize data from our objective one that we talked about, objective 2 about that we talked about. So this offers a very unique chance for sharing understanding and highlighting the resilience across sectoral approach for capacity building. So the resilience learning journey was initially, curriculum was initially built, and it was first piloted with mission staff who critically gave feedback on it. And afterwards, it was launched to the partners. The resilience learning journey is cohort-based programs, 2 to maximum 3 projects, but we partner 2 projects together so that they're able to learn from each other in the process. So with the minimum of 5 to 10 staff, both including prime, local organizations, local staff, senior leadership, and the rest. So through the RLJs, we're able to facilitate 3 cohorts so far, exclusive of the USAID one. The 3 major cohorts, each comprising of 2 partners, comprise of programs from traditional resilience and recovery program, market-based systems, peace building and humanitarian programs. So the other thing, as we move on, next, sorry. So the resilience learning journey, as you can see, this is the map that of the resilience learning journey. The resilience learning journey has been incorporated or has mimics the program cycle management, most parts of it, trying to align it with the program cycle management. It provides the basic concepts for where people who are from new to resilience are able to learn basic resilience concepts and also measurement concepts. From there, we go through the design phase where we have the contextual analysis and the resilience pathways are built. So these are 6-day workshops that are separated into 2 parts. After part 1 is completed, we usually pause and develop the pathways through a support process with our team. Then we come back for the monitoring evaluation part. This whereby includes the learning needs that are identified based on the pathways assumptions. Also, we go through how resilience MEL systems can be integrated into existing systems. Also, how do we integrate the collected resilience MEL data, including how can we align our existing data, existing indicators so that they're able to capture their contributions to resilience. The roadmap, actually, the overall roadmap of this resilience learning journey is comprised of 9 competencies and 14 significant milestones. Overall, for the resilience learning journey, 3 major, I think what has been working very well has been, we have 3 major outcomes that we have so far realized. So when partners have gone through the resilience learning journey, they had one thing that we're able to see is that there is a shared resilience vision and understanding. The resilience learning journey was able to foster understanding of resilience by introducing key essential concepts and clarifying evidence-based capacities crucial in Somalia context. This shared vision forms a foundation for effective collaboration among targeted partners. Another major outcome is we have contextualized resilience approach. So the resilience RLGs use contextual information to tailor resilience elements to specific activities, sectors, and portfolios. By unpacking the resilience logic and creating result chains, these journeys help identify key assumptions, learning questions, adaptive decisions, and to navigate complex challenges. And finally, data-driven adaptation and improvements. RLJ has been important in emphasizing the incorporation of small measurement components into monitoring systems. We have seen regular data collection and analysis, both quantitative and qualitative data enable informed decision-making, answering planning inquiries, specifically on capacities and fostering adaptive management to enhance the overall program effectiveness. Next. So one of the key products is the resilience pathway that's able to articulate the interventions. From interventions, we're able to build what capacities the programs are contributing to, and then the resilience outcomes, and then the well-being outcomes. On the left side, on the right side, you can see the number of shocks that are used to address those resilience outcomes. The current picture you're seeing on the screen is the collective resilience measurement, that resilience pathway for the Somalia mission that was done with the mission team when we were piloting. So this is the first pathway that we were able to develop with the mission team, able to identify from their programming. Next, finally, I'll just show the next point. Jamie? So an example of an activity-based pathway is this reconciliation activity that was able to build a resilience logic out of the activities and then connect to their well-being outcomes and the key conflicts they address. So these pathways have been important in three ways. They are able to clarify the resilience logic of the programs so that they're able to deliver and understand and articulate the relationship between activities and their respective capacities. The other point is they're able to enhance program development management. So we have seen the resilience pathways guide interventions that the programs that have been going through their work planning processes use these as a point of discussion so that they're able to reflect and see, they're able to align the capacities that they're producing, as well as also integrate this into their mail plans, as well as think of how they will sequence the activities, as well as help them facilitate reflective sessions so that they're able to adapt or change their program direction. Finally, this has been critically the most important point of the RLJ pathways that the programs have been doing is they were able to harmonize program communication so that a resilience pathway has been a communication tool along for programs so that they're able to align different stakeholders programs approach. And also this has fostered how programs are able to collaborate, whereby we're able to identify and leverage points between programs that contribute to similar capacities or resilience outcomes. With those few remarks, thank you very much, and I give back to Wendy to take it over to the next section. Thank you.
Thanks, Jafar. So at this point, we're going to transition from the presentations to the question and answer session. And we've already gotten a lot of fantastic questions in the Q&A feature. I'd like to invite all the presenters to go on camera, please. Gildas, vous êtes là? Ah bon, c'est bien parfait ça. Okay. I'd like to begin. I'll give Jafar just a moment of a break. So we'll begin with Rabia for the first question. The question for you is, what have been the most popular topics for peer-to-peer learning in SCC?
Thank you so much, Wendy, for this relevant question. I think our first analysis about the recurring topics addressed for peer-to-peer learning are food security, climate resilience in agriculture, and also conflict resolution and peace building. So that's the main topics. Thank you.
So thank you. Now I'm going to switch to Gildas. Donc, so I'll ask the question in English for the audience et puis en français for Gildas. Okay, so the question for you is, can you provide an example of a champion who took something they learned during the fellowship back to their project and it really made a big difference? Pouvez-vous citer un exemple d'un champion qui a appliqué à son projet un élément qu'il a appris pendant la fellowship et qui a fait une grande différence?
Ok, d'accord. Merci beaucoup pour cette question. Il faut dire que les formations ont commencé en 2022, et on n'a pas fait proprement dit une évaluation post-formation pour voir les acquis d'application les applications des acquis de la formation, mais nous avons fait des constats à travers les discussions avec les champions, et nous avons vu un peu la culture de l'application de la pensée RCLD qui se traduit à travers l'utilisation de certains outils, un certain nombre d'outils. Par exemple, les champions, à travers les discussions entre eux champions, ils identifient des actions de collaboration qu'ils transmettent à leurs différents projets pour enrichir les plans d'action conjoints et discuter entre les différents projets. Il faut dire qu'au Burkina Faso et au Niger, les projets du USAID sont arrivés dans le cadre de la collaboration entre eux à s'accorder des plans d'action conjoints afin de renforcer leur impact et dans les zones où ils interviennent. Donc, les champions contribuent en fournissant des actions, des activités de collaboration et en appuyant dans la formulation même du plan d'action conjoint, parce que avec la formation, ils comprennent mieux et le principe de SLI, c'est-à-dire le principe de sequencing, learning et integrating. Donc, ils contribuent pour formuler les plans d'action conjointes qui sont mis en œuvre. Et également, des outils qui sont appliqués. On a eu écho que, par exemple, il y a des projets. Le projet ASTER, c'est un projet d'amélioration et de sécurisation des terres vers la résilience. Ils utilisent un outil de la fellowship XLE que nous appelons cartographie des systèmes pour évaluer et analyser les contextes afin de mieux comprendre les connexions des chocs et stress liés au foncier. Ils l'ont utilisé. Ils ont également utilisé, cela les a permis de mieux voir la connexion des chocs et stress. Souvent, ils pouvaient être limités à un seul choc, mais avec cet outil de cartographie de la dynamique des chocs permet de voir la connexion, voir que ça ne se limite pas uniquement à un seul choc, ça se limite seulement au conflit agriculteur-éleveur, mais il y a d'autres connexions avec d'autres chocs et stress qui peuvent être prises en compte. Également, ils utilisent un outil que nous appelons l'échange des atouts et de la dépendance mutuelle. Ils l'ont utilisé dans l'animation des discussions des focus group. Et ils ont organisé des focus group, par exemple, entre agriculteurs, éleveurs, entre PDI et population haute, ou entre femmes jeunes et anciens. Cet outil, échange des atouts et de la dépendance mutuelle, les a permis de montrer à ces groupes cibles leur dépendance mutuelle et montrer à ces groupes cibles que chacun a un atout. Par exemple, que les femmes ont un atout qu'ils peuvent utiliser à la faveur des jeunes, à la faveur des plus anciens, voilà, et pour faciliter les discussions de groupe afin de prévenir les conflits et renforcer la cohésion sociale et le vivre ensemble au sein de leur communauté. Donc, ce sont quelques exemples que nous avons pu constater sur le terrain à travers nos discussions avec les champions. Merci.
Merci, Gildas. Okay, I don't know that I can capture all of it, but I will translate the highlights of what he said. The fellowship began in 2022, and it began with a pre-test. So they tested the fellows to understand to assess their understanding before the training began on key concepts that were related to resilient CLA, and kind of also assess the culture of RCLA in their programming. And from there, they were able to introduce certain tools that the fellows were invited to use in their collaboration with other teams. So, for example, there were a few places where specific champions decided, realized that their program was in the same place as another champion's program. And so they could collaborate using the joint action work planning, sorry, in French, the order is a different way, which was a kind of a platform that SCC created so that projects could work together where they're co-located geographically. And so it was sort of a 1-2, right? Like SCC provided the platform, but also helped build up the skill set so that people could make use of it. This is very closely related to the concept of SLI and making sure that projects are taking the time and opportunity to sequence, layer, and integrate their interventions so that they make sense for the people in the community. Another example that Gildas gave was the use of the systems map, which is another tool that was provided during the fellowship. Teams use it to understand the shocks and stresses in the context of their programming, and see connections to not only conflict, but other types of shocks and stresses that were happening. And that could help them kind of identify the root causes of what was going on in some of their programming. The last example he gave was around mutual interdependence, is how it's translated. So they introduced this concept of mutual interdependence to focus groups that were composed of different target groups. So for example, like a group of young women, a group of older men, etc., and kind of walked them through how the members of the group are interdependent upon each other, but also their group is dependent on other groups. And so people got kind of a sense of the bigger picture and the role that they play in their community. Thank you, Gildas. I'm going to offer the next question to Jafar. Okay. Jafar, can you offer us some insight into what RLJ workshop participants have said about how these journeys have benefited them and their organizations? And as a second part of that question, can you also talk about some of the challenges of implementing this curriculum?
Thank you, Wendy. I think one of the most important how the participants were able to make use of the RLJ is that whenever we start, people start slowly thinking where will this take us, because we start from basics. But whenever we develop the pathways with them and people are able to see what they're contributing to, that's when the biggest aha moments come in and people say, we can do this with so, and then we can use this to tell so and so to help us in this. So it also helps them, like, try to get a clear vision in terms of where, like, they want to land in future, because maybe they had a theory of change, but this is a theory of change that is built within the capacities, and with the evidence that possibly we want to generate, we want to see a capacity X when it's realized, it's like central to other capacities. So it brings a aha moment of even understanding, like, now we get where we're going with our own programs. We already had some idea. The other major challenge is that RLJ is participatory and it's based on adult-based learning. It has a lot of participatory components, and that's why it takes a lot of days. This way, I think there is a big challenge. We try to squeeze a lot of components in a short period of time. But all in all, that challenge is we still work with the partners beyond the journey, so that they're able to realize and also provide resource materials. The other thing is that the way it's designed, it starts from simple, easy, understandable, story-based concepts to complex systems. So usually in the room, there are people who have different level of understanding when they come in, different level of leadership. Some get at the start get easily bored with all these basics, while those who are not that much acquainted feel excited. So managing that as a cohort till to the end usually is one of the challenges we are facing. And finally, I think I also can talk about the concepts about we are dealing with different partners who had some of them have been doing resilience themselves, others are not. So they come in with different expectations into the R&D in terms of what they want to get out of it, and expectation management of what R&D really can provide and cannot is one of the areas that we intend to manage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jafar. Rabia, I'll come back to you. We have a question from the audience that came in quite early. And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm very interested to hear what your response will be. The question is, does SCC have a strategy for assessing impact and moving forward with adaptive management given the current impacts of the coup and the economic impacts of the ECOWAS sanctions in Niger?
Thank you, Wendy. Very interesting question indeed. And then SCC has a continuity plan to which all risks assess and mitigation measures are proceed for the next 6 months. So particularly we've done, so you have this strategy for intervention in Niger given to the context. And also something that I will want to add is that SCC plans to produce some brief analyzing the impact of the coup d'etat on Niger and in Burkina Faso also, and also see how IPs have been impacted by this context and how they adapt in their intervention so for that. So of course, this brief will be shared to our communication channels, in particular our Resilience Links page. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rabia. Okay, Gildas, we have another question for you from the audience. So again, I'll say it in English et puis en français. So the question is it possible for an NGO to work with a fellow on specific initiatives that would be of value to the implementer? Do the fellows need to work on a USAID Feed the Future program? En français, est-il possible pour une ONG de travailler avec un champion sur des initiatives spécifiques qui seraient utiles à l'exécutant? Et est-ce que les champions doivent-ils travailler sur un programme Feed the Future de USAID?
Et oui, et il faut dire que les champions viennent de tous les projets de l'USAID qui interviennent sous le parapluie du RISE 2, bon, RISE 2, résilience au Sahel. Et aussi, au-delà de ces champions, il y a des champions qui sont ici des parties prenantes locales, c'est-à-dire les ONG locales et les parties prenantes nationales de la résilience, les institutions nationales de la résilience. Donc, les champions peuvent bien travailler avec ces ONG locales qui interviennent dans la résilience et les institutions nationales de résilience. Même eux-mêmes, ils participent souvent aussi aux formations parce que quand un projet de l'USAID trouve pertinent qu'il faut prendre en compte un partenaire, SCC les prend en compte. Voilà. Je ne sais pas si c'est clair. Voilà. C'est pour dire que les champions peuvent venir des projets de l'USAID et des institutions nationales et des parties prenantes, les ONG locales. Mais ces ONG locales sont proposées par les projets de l'USAID avec lesquels ils collaborent.
Merci, Gildas. Just a quick translation. So in answer to the question about Feed the Future, all of the partners under SCC are USAID implementing partners. They're not necessarily under Feed the Future, but they do fit in one way or another under the 3 portfolios that SCC belongs to. So RISE 2 is the major one, but there are 2 others, Bridge and GSPS, which focuses on security. In terms of seeking support, anyone who is a part of a team that's under these portfolios can seek support from SCC. So, for example, a former fellow could come back to SCC and seek out technical support, even if the question at hand is around working with, for example, a local NGO that needs a little bit of capacity building. SCC is equipped to offer that kind of technical support. Okay, let's see what we've got in the questions. Jafar, I'm going to come back to you. So we had one question that got a couple votes, so I'm gonna we'll do audience participation for this one. Can you comment on the findings of gender dynamics? Which gender norms showed enhanced capacities for resilience and which are negative?
Yeah, I think as I started with the first, what we presented as a capacity documentary is based on literature review of what previous measurement was done in Somalia. We are currently doing our own measurements, or we're doing our own surveys to understand some of these things. So I think when it comes to gender dynamics in Somalia, there's disparity in gender overall. We know that one of the things that amazed us in terms of the drought formative research is like we have found out that a lot of men have been going through a lot of psychosocial stress because their household heads and they want to provide and all that happened, and this has been impacting on them negatively with some of them with a few recorded suicides as a result of livestock loss, which has been very uncommon in Somalia because of that. So it shows like also girls who have been impacted significantly by the drought, and the family fragmentation has caused the female gender to become much exposed in terms of some of the psychosocial factors, and they also GBV related cases. Overall, I think overall women are more disproportionately affected due to their vulnerability levels in Somalia compared to men, but also it's imagined that equally men are affected by these things in similar manner, but we have not yet uncovered yet into the previous work that was done, and maybe we may help unpack that in future. Thank you.
Thanks, Jafar. Okay, we still have many questions coming. That's awesome. I have another question for Rabia. When mentioning structural adaptations to meet participants' needs, can you expand on what those adaptations look like, please?
Oh, for sure. Structural adaptation include customizing content with concrete study cases from IPs and champions that attend the fellowship, and also adjusting formats and to make sure that they are going to, works with the agendas, and also reformulating models with understandable terms and exercise. And we work also to increase peer-to-peer learning opportunities and create a supportive community. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia. Yeah, I was fortunate to get to watch how SCC made decisions about the findings from its assessment in terms of some of these adaptations, and they really took to heart a lot of what the champions recommended. So that's been fun to see play out. Okay, Gildas. We have another question for you, and it's somewhat related to the previous question. So again, I'll say it in English and then I'll translate it for him into French. Are champions in Niger available to assist other organizations who may need resilience training? Les champions du Niger sont-ils disponibles pour aider d'autres organisations qui pourraient avoir besoin d'une formation à la résilience?
Et oui, certainement. Ils ont acquis la connaissance, ils seront contents de partager cette connaissance. Ils n'attendent que ça. Et ils sont organisés en réseau et ils ont créé un grand groupe WhatsApp qui regroupe tous les champions du Niger et de Burkina Faso et ils interagissent à travers de ce groupe WhatsApp. Et en plus, ils ont des rencontres périodiques où ils se rencontrent pour échanger entre champions excellents. Et oui, les champions du Niger peuvent bien renforcer d'autres acteurs. Et ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'ils peuvent toujours collaborer, discuter avec les autres champions des autres du Burkina et du Niger pour ensemble concevoir quelque chose qui peut être utile et puis renforcer les capacités d'autres acteurs. On est champion excellent à vie.
Merci, Jeda, c'est parfait. So what he said was, yes, certainly. The champions are organized into a network, and the network takes several forms. There's a WhatsApp group, there's periodic meetings, and it includes both champions from Niger and champions from Burkina Faso. So when they get requests, they can leverage each other when there are things that they're not quite sure what to do, or if they need resources that someone else has developed. So feel free to reach out to your neighborhood champion if you have a desire for a resilience training, and they should be well equipped to help. Okay, let's go back to Jafar. There are many questions for Jafar around those 6 capacities. Yeah, let's do that one. Okay, so Jafar, what I'd like to pose to you now is that the question is, you highlighted 6 emerging resilience capacities that matter in Somalia, and you talked a bit about how that came out of the literature review, and there were some hints around it's different for different populations. But you also mentioned livelihood adaptations. Are there any indications as to which livelihood assets are contributing significantly to resilience in this context?
I think from literature, what we have is overall that livelihood adaptation is one of the key capacities. So we are delving into more surveys to understand which assets really matter. So hopefully, in subsequently, we're able to answer that question. But for now, I think what we can only say that overall livelihood adaptation is what is mentioned in the literature, but there is no evidence specifically which asset leads to capacity. But it's an area that we're currently investigating. Once we find what we're able to share it to our activity page and resilience.
Yeah, I think these activity pages are going to become just extraordinary opportunities for knowledge sharing, because